C, and these are the TikTokers of the day. Anywhere. Yeah. Yeah. So we are here today to discuss TikTok and social media and what it takes to build your brand. So without further ado, let's get started again. And if everyone can introduce yourselves and say a little bit about who you are and what we do, we'll get started.
Sure, I'll start. My name is Eric Foster. I am an agent assistant at the Wall Group, and in fact, I'm actually Corinne's assistant who you just saw. Yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Benji Park. I'm sort of best known as a fashion commentator and journalist. I've worked in-house at TikTok, but I've also worked with a bunch of magazines, and now I run a creative agency too.
Hi guys, my name is Umber Kadir, and I've recently become well actually it's not that recently, it's nearly been a year of doing social media as my full-time job, and yeah, I'm a content creator and I'm based in London.
Hi everyone, my name is Meninda Sachdeva, and by day I'm a finance guy in a bank, and by evening I am also creating content on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, so yeah, quite similar.
I'm so excited to get to meet you all for the first time and have a conversation today. So Manny, Ambika, Benji, you're all quite well known and respected on TikTok. How has branding on social media been essential in building your personal brand?
Yeah, I mean, I think sort of social media now has given us such access, especially like, you know, Instagram has really sort of been and gone now. I feel like everyone is on Instagram as a prerequisite. But things like TikTok allowed one to have a complete fresh face in front of people who perhaps otherwise you wouldn't have interacted with. I mean, I went to a dinner and I remember Naomi Campbell being like, "Oh, you were on my FYP." And like you wouldn't have been on her Instagram, but like you would have got on their For You page. And there's lots of, I had Kim Jones say the same thing at the Fashion Awards, and you think to yourself like that sort of access, whether you're like a stylist or whether you're running a business or whether you want to go into whatever facet of fashion that you want to go into, because there are more jobs in fashion than like one could ever imagine. It gives you so much access to that. It also just gives you a chance to be very chill. Like Instagram is expected to be very curated. TikTok is not. Employers don't necessarily care if your TikTok is less curated either. The whole point is it's like a digital scrapbook.
Yeah, I think for me, with TikTok, I had a chance to really think about who I wanted to be, what brands did I want to appeal to. But because TikTok is a little bit more Gen Z, it's a little bit more fun. I could play around with things a little bit more. I could create content that was still fun, but still quite polished. So I think with TikTok, there was a bit more of a juxtaposition between the two identities of me that I wanted to merge into one, which maybe you don't get the same chance with Instagram. So yeah.
No, I completely agree in terms of I would spend hours not posting a photo on Instagram because it didn't fit the aesthetic of my feed, and that would in some ways inhibit the amount of sort of creative potential I'd put in some of the posts I was doing on Instagram, whereas on TikTok it gave me the ability to really just step outside of those boundaries, not restrict myself to the kind of visual image I want to have on a specific feed, but really just try out a new trend, go ahead and put a look together that maybe I wouldn't have maybe not use those colors on my Instagram color scheme, but it really enables you to push the boundaries and try something you might not have done, and also be influenced by people you might not have been influenced by. Like if I look at some of the content on TikTok that I've created, I may not have done that without having seen people's videos on my For You page that I probably wouldn't have come across if it wasn't for the algorithm. So I think it really fosters a space for community and really allows you to sort of find out more about yourself as an individual.
Sounds like Naomi Campbell would agree for the For You page.
I hope.
And you work more so with TikTok or Instagram?
So from an agency perspective, you know, at the Wall Group we represent hair stylists, makeup artists, and fashion stylists. I think there is still definitely a place for Instagram. We use Instagram as a promotional tool for our artists. We still, in fact, use it to pitch to certain clients, mainly for brand partnerships or sponsorships. And in fact, we use it a lot also to kind of gauge the credibility of new artists, perhaps, that have approached us and want to get on our development board or want to join us as an assistant. Usually they don't tend to have fully fleshed out portfolios yet, so we use Instagram as a really good tool to kind of gauge, what kind of person they're going to be like on set, how are they going to gel with our artists. So, and in fact, there is still, I feel like, a little bit of hesitance for many artists to try TikTok. But I agree with all of you. I think it definitely is, the next step. And I think I encourage all, artists, whatever background you may come from, to, in addition to curating your Instagram, definitely try out TikTok, because why not?
So there really is a large importance that celebrity clients and brands place on the Instagram. I mean, we touched on it previously about the portfolio, now more so digital. So it's almost like an Instagram is more of a portfolio, maybe?
Yeah, I would say, it's definitely separate to the portfolio, but I would say it's, in this day and age, it definitely holds equal importance to your portfolio.
Right, and then maybe TikTok is more of a creative space. For example, Manny, I'm so excited to talk with you because you used to be doing computer science at Oxford, right? Well done, you. That's not easy. And now you're here with us today. What does the future look like for you and with your plans with TikTok and how that is the merge from your business life?
Definitely. I think having the creative outlet like TikTok really enabled me to fuel energy into this aspect of my life that I felt really passionate about. It's very easy as a young person to be funneled through the education system and end up picking a subject, ending up at university, ending up in a job, and realizing that you actually left that passion for fashion, if I can quote the brats, back at school. And so having outlets like TikTok have allowed me to really explore that. And looking at the future, I really want to sort of somehow combine the business skills that I've picked up working within financial institutions alongside sort of creative side of fashion. So whether that means working in the business development side of a sort of large fashion conglomerate or something like that, I really want to kind of marry those two ideas together.
Very cool, very cool. So how do you guys decide what to post?
I think a lot of the time it's looking at what's trending, looking at trending sounds, if there's a new challenge that's arisen. Obviously, I think we can all think of some really viral TikTok challenges. The create looks that you'd wear as a front row sitter, I think, was one of the biggest ones. So I think challenges are a really good start when it comes to creating content and then putting your own spin on that. So I think things only go viral if you've put a bit of yourself into it. People like authenticity on TikTok. I think that's why you don't see as curated feeds doing maybe as well on TikTok versus Instagram. So challenges are a really great option for someone who's unsure of what kind of content they want to create as a first kind of piece. Yeah.
I agree, because I think the idea of challenges is that given the way that TikTok algorithms work, someone's more likely to see one of your videos if they're already interested in that challenge already, and it opens you up to an entire new audience of people that may not necessarily have interacted with your content before. And I think the fact that you said adding your authentic spin to it, I think that is the key thing, to remember that you bring yourself to that challenge and show how you can take a unique take towards it. Because if I look back at the videos of mine that hit the sort of like 700,000, million, 2 million views, those are the ones where I took a challenge that other people are already doing, but you add your own, whether that's something from your own ethnic background or you add something from your own experiences through life, from your previous careers, etc. It's really putting a personal spin on those global TikTok trends and challenges that really can lead to that very quick exponential growth.
So Benji, what works for you and what doesn't?
I mean, I suppose I'm a bit different because I'm not doing like style. I mean, I'll be completely honest, like I don't have a great sense of personal style. I don't know if that's like blasphemy to say, but
I think you look really cool, by the way.
that's because I got dressed
Oh,
by
okay.
Gucci. I was literally like,
We got to see Benji on a good day
Shit.
today.
yeah, so I'm like quite happy. Like when it's fashion week, I just wear tailoring. Like I'll normally just wear like all McQueen or all Tom Brown or all Valentino. Like I'm like a runway look slut. I'm just like, dress me in the whole look. I don't want to think about it at all. And that's probably because, like, first and foremost, I am an academic and I am a journalist. So outside fashion, my specialism is Judeo-Muslim interfaith relations, and I lead archaeological digs in the Middle East quite a lot. So that's sort of one of my specialisms. And I'm now currently about to join a large NGO organization as one of the worldwide leading.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. About anti-Semitism and religious discrimination, which is sort of what I spend a lot of my time doing, which is why it's nice, because this new vanguard of specifically TikTokers are so multicultural, and we seem to have this fallacy that Instagram welcomed in this era of inclusivity, and it is a lie. And you only need to go and sit front row at one of the major fashion brands to know that. And I think I found that quite shocking. And TikTok has allowed that accessibility, and they can't ignore it either. You know, I mean, I did front row with McQueen, and all of the content creators from TikTok, that was the diverse group of people. And then, you know, we walked past everyone else and all of the Instagrammers, and they're all mostly German, British, with no other sort of minority status or anything. And I think that's what TikTok allows you to do. It doesn't really matter what your background is or where you come from or what your experience is. I mean, if I'm completely honest, my experience in the fashion industry, I mean, I've been in fashion since I was 14, but my credentials weren't incredible. To be completely just blunt honest, don't want to shoot myself in the face here. But you know, TikTok gives you a massive audience that allows you to be able to do things that otherwise perhaps you wouldn't have been able to.
That's really amazing. I mean, personally, I haven't even thought of it like that, but it does open a lot of doors, I think, for diversity and obviously creativity. And so how do you advise your clients on Instagram to also, you know, step forward into creating a better change as well, and also promoting themselves and being authentic?
Well, I think an artist's personal brand is essentially your work, you know. And so I encourage all of our artists to, if they're struggling to find any content for social media, is just view every job as a content opportunity, whether that's a shoot, whether that's a red carpet, a test shoot, even a fitting, you know. Take behind the scenes photos just in case, as Tom mentioned earlier, the final photos aren't usable. You know, take the control into your own hands. Take the BTS footage, you know, post as you go, and just try new things, right? You know, if you're not fully ready yet for a platform like TikTok, test out Instagram Reels. It's a good kind of stepping stone to get there.
And how do you take the time to decide, evaluate the opportunity for potential deals that actually are lucrative and provide you business and make money?
I think it's super key to, I know we keep saying this word again and again, but super key to remain authentic. There have been so many instances of being approached by companies and brands where you have certain partnerships, and you may think that that's a really lovely paycheck that I'd love to have this month, but then you also realize that this actually doesn't align with A, the content I'm creating, B, the audience I have, and C, the values that I would like to spread. So it's really important, because that might have a short-term gain for you now, but that might lead to people unfollowing, leaving, not being interested in your content anymore, and sort of lead to a downward spiral. So I think that it's really important in these instances to have a conversation with that. It might be that there may be you might like the essence of the company and the brand, but you might not like the way they're pitching it. Have a conversation with them, because they will actually value you for being a more authentic creator.
For speaking up, that's really
exactly,
cool. Yeah.
Exactly. And there have been times before where I may not have liked the brief exactly to the T. And then you have a conversation with the company, you have a conversation with the people who are running the campaign, and then actually we didn't think about that. We're actually going to go back and change this for the other creators we're doing as well. So it's really important to value yourself and value the platform that you have created, because the reason they're approaching you is because that has value, and you don't want any company or brand to dissolve that for you at all, because you've put effort into putting it together.
I think that's a really great way to explain, now that you have had the experience, how you get there and how you continue to be a force for change, because you're now telling the brands that are coming to you how you want to do things. So I think that's really, really interesting. Is there anything else that you would like to add to that?
No, I think it's just following on, really. I think because via Instagram, an audience has become very disillusioned to sponsored posts. people do tend to just scroll past very quickly. But I think as a creator, you know your audience best, and you have to have faith in the fact that you do know your audience best. The reason that non-sponsored content does so well is because it's your most authentic self. So I think having those conversations and kind of pushing the lines when it comes to brand briefs and what they want you to create as content is very important. And I also think that when you do get the pushback from a brand, it's always worth evaluating, is this worth it for me? I think, I'm not sure what your experience is as a kind of talent manager when it comes to briefs, but I would say that when I think brands are a little bit more malleable now, and they're more, what would you call it? Ready to listen to the creator, which I don't think has always been the case in the past, especially with new platforms like TikTok, where it's very new for them as well.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of an interesting one. You really sort of like, it's a fine line between being self-confident and being overly assertive when you get a brief. Like, sometimes I do get briefs from major fashion houses and I think like, oh my God, this is absolute shit. Like, no one's gonna wanna see this, no one's gonna watch this, and then we turn it down, they do it with another agency, and it does really badly. And then you think to yourself like, oh my gosh, maybe they will change, and then they do the same thing for the next like 6 months. So sometimes you can't make the change, and sometimes you need to just sort of get with the program and realize that they are essentially your employer, and that you need to have some flexibility, and there is a massive amount of professional dexterity needed, where you do need to be able to have a certain amount of dissonance and be like, you know, I don't love this, but this is someone else's vision and it has value for that, because we're not all going to like the same things. However, with briefs, you do have, especially with TikTok, just a massive amount of power, because brands should, if you cater the right sort of relationships, see you as not only like a creator or a professional, but also as having some sort of consultation value. And if they value you enough to use you or employ you in any capacity, then they should respect you enough to listen to your opinions when it comes to the brief or the campaign or whatever. But it's really, you know, it's just treading that line and making sure that you're not being overly assertive and dominant, whilst also doing something that's authentic to yourself.
So it's a balance between that, but also with your time, right? So how do you balance your time between the strategy and the content creating?
Sorry, strategy in terms of
Planning your posts, making a plan of how you want to do things, and then actually shooting it and filming it.
So usually with a brief, you'll have a certain turnaround time. So personally, I'll have a calendar, and I'll have written down in the calendar exclusivity periods. That's probably one of the most important things I think I have to think about when it comes to brand posts. So brands will always say that before posting and after posting, there is a set amount of time that we don't want you to have any posts from X, Y, and Z. So a lot of the time when it comes to me deciding which brand deals do I want to take on, part of it will be thinking about exclusivity and does that coincide with when this other brand wants me to go live? If that is the case, usually I'll go back to a brand and say, I love the brief. I really want to work with you. I really want to start a relationship with you. However, I've got another piece of work coming on. I don't want that to coincide, and I want there to be enough time between the two. Would you consider moving the live date a bit further back? And sometimes that works. And then I think also it's just not overstretching, making sure you still have time to create your own personal content. How did you find creating content versus the branded content?
I think that's the thing. I was just about to say that I have a similar calendar where I'll list out posts and have exclusivity periods and make sure I'm not committing to too many things, too many branded posts in a certain week or too many in a certain month. And then you do actually find yourself having to say no to certain things because you want to retain your own personal posts as well. And I sometimes struggle with that because especially with me, I have a day job where I'm working in a bank, and then I'll come home and then I'll have to plan and send posts for review, and they'll come back and then film and then send it for editing, send the first edit back to the company. They'll come back with comments, and then I've got to now re-film something and re-edit something, and it takes a lot of mental energy and effort. And you don't want to use so much of that that you stop being the creator that you started being in the first place, because it's burning you out. So I think the really important thing is to really not overstretch yourself. Initially, it might be super exciting when you're getting involved here and getting involved there, and then on the weekend you're going to go do a lovely panel event over here, and then after this going to go back and film something else. And you really have to factor in time for you to be you and create the content that you were originally creating authentically, because that will keep your content very genuine, and it will also make sure that you continue to have that creative ammunition in your head when it comes to actually brainstorming things for sponsored posts and collaborations. I think it's very easy to say yes to every opportunity that comes, especially the kind of people that we all are sitting here, all kind of want to get ahead, we want to do more. And so it's very easy to say yes, 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 and then kind of leave your actually ability to execute well on each of those. So maybe accepting one or two of the three things that you might have on your plate at this specific moment might be better for you long term, and also for those specific projects individually as well.
This is fascinating, honestly. You guys are so cool. And for you, what are you most passionate about in your job?
Well, as an agent assistant, I am really, passionate about just helping make all of our agents and our artists' lives that much easier. And whether that's helping, guiding them through this really, bizarre world that is social media, that is mainly what I am passionate about. And so yeah, I just, I help them find, types of content categories that they can do. I help them reach out to brands in terms of helping them get sponsorships or any kind of brand partnerships. And so yeah, that's kind of my favorite part of the job.
What are the categories that you choose from typically?
Well, I mentioned one of them earlier, which is, behind the scenes content, which you film kind of on the day, just when you're doing the finishing touches to say maybe a makeup look, or you're finishing a fitting, or another category is the self tape category. And I strongly encourage all the artists to try this, because typically artists tend to take on behind the scenes roles and you're not in front of the camera. But, when you're during your off days, when you want to, find something to do, I strongly suggest, taking a selfie video of yourself. Maybe it's trying out a new palette, whether that's, testing some new clothes that a brand has sent you. It just adds that personal touch to your social media and, helps round out your personal brand.
I think that's a really good piece of advice. And for you three, for any tips that you have for driving sales of service. I mean, you've given such great advice in terms of being yourself and authentic and time management. But what about for when, the people here get to a place where they get to be in charge like you are? What are some tips that you might have for that?
I think with TikTok as a platform anyway, and actually, to be honest, Instagram as well, think about what the mode of content is. So when it comes to lives, for example, I think sales within lives is becoming quite a big thing, especially as a stylist, you're selling yourself. And I think when it comes to doing lives and pushing yourself as a stylist, and also pushing the clothes pieces, it's just constant reminders of you could style it like this, you could do it like this. Think about the wide range of audience you have, and come across with personality. I think that really helps when it comes to lives. And if you haven't checked out TikTok Shoppable Live, I really think it's worth having a look on the platform and checking out one, even if it's just for a couple of minutes, just to see, because it's such a new thing that's coming into effect. I think it's already quite big in China, which is where TikTok originated from, and it's being pushed into the West, so probably worth having a quick look at the lives. I think when it comes to actual video form content, having something fun, something personable, quite similar. I mean, with us, a lot of it is going to be styling pieces. So a bit different from you guys, where you're selling services versus a product.
And Benji, what would it be like for you?
I'm sort of, a bit of food for thought, isn't it? I mean, the big thing is that, think about whatever career you want to have. I mean, for me, I was like, I want to work at Vogue. I mean, that was misguided because now I have friends who work at Vogue, and I'm kind of like, maybe that's not for me. But I was like, yeah, you know, I would like to work for Vogue, and I thought like that seemed like a fun job, live my Devil Wears Prada life, and like 14-year-old Benji was like, that sounds like fun.
We all had that moment,
Yeah,
right?
but you know, whether it's you want to be a stylist, whether you want to be like an equivalent of like a Gary Armstrong, or whether you want to be an equivalent of like a Sarah Harris or whatever, you just need to realize what your goal is, because that's literally like 50% of the journey. I spend so many time talking to people in fashion, like young people in fashion or people who are having second careers in fashion, and I'm like, what do you want to do? Like, you've come to Fashion Week, Mazel Tov, like that's half the spiel, but like, what do you want to do? Like, where do you want to go with this? Because every single time you meet someone, every single time you have a conversation, you have no idea who you will be talking to or who you'll be sitting next to. And you need to think about like how you can have basically an organic elevator pitch for yourself. TikTok is one way to do that. It allows you to be able to encapsulate yourself in a way that is seemingly organic, but that you still have power of curation over. It's a way for you to like put your best foot forward, but in like a sort of like organic sense. And if you're smart about that, because the emphasis right now is all about authentic content, which is going to be like the word of the day, we're all going to like scream the next time we hear it, then you can curate yourself so that people realize that you have a professional goal with your authentic content. It's really just about, I mean, you know, TikTok is like your digital facets are massive, Instagram, TikTok, etc. But how you translate those into the real world is like so important. I mean, like the amount of events we go to and like parties. I mean, if we go to one more rooftop party at the Standard, I actually think I might scream. I mean, it's brill, but like, you know, we spend so much time networking, don't we? And that is how you know, you can have a brilliant digital footprint, but unless you can actualize it with a goal that is tangible in the real world, you know, that is literally half of the work, I would say.
Sorry, can I just add, you mentioned networking. From an artist perspective, I think social media, just generally speaking, whether that's Instagram or TikTok, is a very good networking tool. The amount of times that we've had our artists come to us and say, oh, I found this photographer on Instagram and I really want to shoot with them, or I found this stylist and I'm a makeup artist, for example, and I really want to, you know, work with them on this project. And it's a really good way to meet other creatives that you may end up having a job opportunity with in the future. So, you know, there is networking in the physical life, but I feel like Instagram is like, or social media is like a party. You know, you don't know what you're getting, but you walk in and you come out with friends. So, you know, strongly encourage you to view it as a networking tool as well.
Well, speaking of friends, does anyone have any questions? Jack's coming. Come on, Jack.
Sorry, a very big thing associated with social media that no one has discussed yet is mental health. Have you have any personal story that you want to share, or from your followers, did you have any comments that you realized that maybe people were not well because they were spending too many hours of their time online?
I would say mental health is definitely something that I've definitely especially struggled with when I first started working sort of hectic corporate hours, and then also trying to keep up with sponsored posts and timelines. And there was actually an instance, if I look back, where I was working on a sponsored post with a company, and as they said, they'd set out all the deadlines for everything that was needed, and I think they needed one of the posts on something like the 15th of October, and I got so caught up in work, finishing very long hours. I remember looking at the date and I was like, oh my God, it's the 17th of October and I haven't sent my draft. I had all the videos recorded, just needed to spend basically a couple of hours editing. And I went into my email, wrote them an email quickly, and like, sorry, we will no longer be moving forward with you on this campaign. And I cannot tell you how bad it made. I felt like I just failed in that moment. I was like, I was juggling all these things so well, everything was working fine, but all of a sudden I let the ball drop. Why did I do that? And I think that it can happen when you're also booking in clients, but you also want to keep up your social media work. You want to make sure you're trying to attract new clients and network. And everyone here is going to have a piece of advice. And you're probably sitting there thinking, how am I going to do all of these things in one go? You need to cut yourself some slack, because I was overwhelming myself back then. And that is where the sort of advice of not taking absolutely every single thing that comes towards you, not saying yes to absolutely everything, scheduling in time for you to do you and be you. I think it's really important to factor those aspects in. But looking at the flip side of it, social media, and especially TikTok, is a place where you can get a lot of feedback, a lot of unsolicited feedback you don't want to hear from a lot of people. And I don't know what it is about TikTok, but it gives people more of a backbone to say whatever they want. So I think that aspect of it, I think it's really important to not let that get to you. You're by putting yourself out there on a platform like TikTok, enabling millions of people across the world. Like, my sister lives in Canada. Her neighbor walked over to her house and knocked on the door and said, your brother was on my For You page. I was like, how did I end up there? So the fact that you are putting yourself out there on a platform, you are already miles further than the people who are out there sort of bashing comments down there. So it's really important to sort of separate that. It's very easy for me to say, don't let that get to you. But it's important to sort of compartmentalize that and not let that sort of spill over into the rest of your life. It's important that you look after yourself by making sure you're not taking on too much by trying to do every single thing that you've heard about here today. But also, when you are on these platforms and when you are putting yourself out there, to really not let every single opinion get to you.
It's really important. Thanks for bringing that up. Any other questions?
Hi. Oh, sorry. Hi, my name is Valerie. Thank you for coming today.
Hi, Valerie.
Hi. My question's for Manny. I just found it really interesting how, like, you've been focused on a finance career for most of your life, and then you've found like a creative outlet when it comes to fashion. My question, coming from a legal background myself and trying to enter into the fashion industry now, how do you balance both of those careers, and how do you stay motivated?
Thanks very much for your question. I would say that for me, one of the key things is I know deep down, although I love my finance job, it's great fun, fashion is kind of where my heart lies. And even if I see someone walking down the street in an outfit I love, I will stop them and tell them, because that gives my heart happiness. Just seeing someone well-dressed, an interesting outfit. And so for me, the fact that passion kind of comes internally is what is the motivating factor for me to finish a long day of work and sit down and be like, I'm going to put some content together. Let me pull out all the clothes from my wardrobe and see what I can throw together. Or I bought that new jumper last week. What will that work well with? And it's really important to find where that driving motivation internally. And for me, that comes from the passion that I have for this industry, for creating the kind of content that I do. And I would say it is difficult at times to balance two separate careers. It's very difficult to forget finance, sort of any other job, if you're doing that alongside trying to stay authentic online and social media. It's very difficult. But I would say it will come a lot easier to you and way more naturally as long as you are really passionate about it. And for me, when I look at the times when it does get difficult, when I have sort of competing deadlines for work and, for example, sponsored posts, that is an internal message for me to maybe take a step back and realign and be like, what do I need to take off my plate right now? Because clearly there's too much. And just having that sense of foresight and the ability to step back is, I think, what is really beneficial to make it sustainable. Because you don't want it to be unsustainable. You don't want to take on a full-time job in the legal world, which I'm sure is extremely demanding, and also being a stylist as well, and also making sure you're creating the right content to get the right clients from social media, because that's a lot to juggle. But really having the opportunity and the ability to step back and see everything a bit holistically will make sure that you can ensure that it's sustainable, so that when you have got a bit too much on at work, you're sort of calming down the social media, and then when work's a bit lighter, you can sort of tune that up, and that will sort of come with time.
You must be the best dressed guy at JP Morgan. That is for sure. Do we have any more questions? Jack is coming.
Hello, I'm Anita.
Hi, Anita.
Hi there. Somebody said to me, and I hope this helps other women and men in the room, that social media is PR, not ER. So public relations as opposed to emergency room. If we don't post every day, you know, people will still survive.
Hallelujah. Who's next?
Oh, sorry. Just shout out because
Good afternoon, guys. Thank you for this. My name is Stevie. I'm a stylist.
Hey, Stevie.
Hi. I'm a stylist from New York, but I live here in London now working. And my question, I believe, would be primarily for Eric. So you mentioned a lot how as creatives we should be like presenting ourselves a bit more personally, like the little selfie videos and things like that. And I guess ideally I understand how that would help with like growth for our account and things like that. But for you as someone who works with an agency, when you guys, I don't know if you like search social media and like scout for like new artists, but do you look for like the actual work, or is it like those selfie bits or the number in the followings or accumulation of all the bits?
So yeah, we do look at social media quite a lot actually. When new artists come and approach us, whether they're a high-level artist or if they're a junior assistant, we always kind of check the social media. It's not usually the first thing, it's usually the portfolio that we look at, the quality of their work, but having a presence on social media is very important because it gives us a sense of who you are in addition to your work. It doesn't mean that you need to have those, selfie videos on your social media for us to get a sense of that. It can be like how you curate your content. It can be, the captions that you use. It can be, the people that you work with. It helps give us a sense of who you are as an artist. And it's very important, like Karine mentioned earlier, as agents, it's important that we work with artists that we have good relationships with. So that's why we do it. But what I would also say, my advice would be, is that as an artist, as a stylist or makeup artist or hairstylist, prioritize growing your art first before growing your social media.
Absolutely, perfect. Thank you.
That's really good. That's really true. Any other questions?
Hiya, I'm Bryony.
Hi, Briley.
I've recently moved into styling from a fashion buying background, but I also do influencing on the side. And at the moment, similar to you, I'm kind of trying to juggle both full-time jobs. And as much as I love my styling job and I would love to continue that for a while, I would also love to take influencing full-time one day, and I was just wondering what your advice would be on how you would take that full-time, and also how do you know when the right time is to make that jump?
So I went full-time last year in May, and prior to that I was at a hedge fund. I think the nice thing about having the pandemic was you were working at home, and so all of a sudden I had lunches downstairs, which meant that I had time to create content. That was where I got my time. When it came to going full-time, to be honest, I think no one's going to know when the best time is going to be other than you. I think when I first went full-time, I went crazy with sponsorships. I just left a stable job, and I was like, I need to bring in as much money as I can. I need to cover all my bases. I'd already been doing quite a lot of sponsor posts before that point of going full-time, so I had savings. But for me, it was still that massive leap of faith. But I think you will know when that right time is. And I think when you've got consistent sponsorships coming in, whether that's with companies that you've worked with quite often over quite a few months, if you can create sponsorships that are over a month or 2 month or 3 month long period where you're creating, 2 videos for their page every month, maybe at that point is a good time for you to go, actually, I think I might be ready to. But the only person who's going to know will be yourself.
I completely agree with that. And I think it's once you have a level of sustainability that you think that, okay, this is no longer just like a side hustle for me. This is now something that is actually paying my bills. And this is something that I could see paying my bills for the next few months. And if because I think sometimes it can feel a bit like the chicken and the egg. I can put more time into it if I leave that, but I can't leave that until that's like enough for me to like sustain my life. But I think that, as Ambika said, you will know when you've hit a point where, okay, I can see this being consistent. I can see the interest and the emails coming in being consistent, and I think that's the right point to take a leap of faith.
Just quickly as well, I feel you said you're a stylist, so that's already a great job to be able to still carry on whilst also being an influencer, and taking people behind the scenes from a styling point of view is already such a great opportunity to build up on that influencing side, because you've got credibility then. And I think people from influencers, when we keep talking about being genuine and being authentic, people love the idea of going, that's someone as a stylist who actually knows how to style other people's bodies, so they'll probably know how to style mine, which means that when she's showing pieces on her feed, well, I could probably translate that into my own wardrobe. And I think that's already such a massive credential that you've got that you can use to your advantage.
Also, can I just say there is most definitely a world where styling and social media influencing can work side by side. Check out Phoebe Lettuce-Thompson on Instagram and Leia Abbott. They're both phenomenal stylists, but also take on quite a lot of social media partnerships on the side, and you'll see it can work.
Sorry, I've just got another question that's kind of led on from that. So I'm actually employed by a company. I'm not a freelance stylist. So there's only so much. Obviously, I can share a bit, but I work with a lot of private clients, and obviously where I'm employed, I can't share, the outfits that I'm choosing because they're for a very specific client. But like what you were saying about how those two worlds can coexist is really interesting. And also, like, I've got an agent now who luckily brings me in quite a lot of work. And just going back to that balancing subject that you were talking about, I think that's something that I've struggled with, is as much as it's amazing that I'm getting so much work through Instagram, I'm also trying to build my styling career. And it's just, and you're like, oh my God, I'm spinning so many plates. But yeah, thank you so much. That was really good advice.
Well, thank you, Eric and Manny and Bika, Benji, for being such a positive influence on all of us today and giving us the inside look at what a peek in your world is like. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you, guys.
What a great panel.